And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 79 of Global Citizens. My name is Calvin. I am the show's host, and of course, I am also its creator. So, yes, for my guest for today is somebody who I have actually been following for quite a while, and I am going to prove that she actually did not hear me singing before we are live actually for today. All right. So for those of you who are watching it on Sunday, this lovely lady is actually having the same namesake as the day itself. So yes. So without further ado, I will introduce her. So she is a TCK mom, a solution-oriented coach, a podcast host, and in fact, her podcast Expat Happy Hour has already reached over 200 plus episodes. She is also a noted intercultural strategist for individuals and organizations. So without further ado, allow me to welcome Miss Sundae Schneider-Bean. Hi, Sundae. How are you?
Hi, I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, very welcome. Very welcome. All right. So for those of you who just tuned in to this show for the very first time, Global Citizen is an online platform whereby I invited individuals who has experienced an intercultural lifestyle, and primarily, of course, it advocated third culture kid. As a biasly is because I am one. So the reason for that is because I want people to actually realize that this kind of global lifestyle is not something that is just like an extended vacation. A lot of times we have to ingratiate ourselves, we have to change how we speak, how we talk, how we act in order to fit in with a new kind of surroundings and sometimes may not accept us for who we are. So without further ado, I'll pass the spotlight back to Sunday for her to say a little bit more about herself. So Sunday, yeah, maybe if you don't mind, please share with us your global life.
Okay, well, I did not start out with a global life. I was born and raised in Williston, North Dakota, which is literally near the geographical center of North America, raised by a father who was a farmer and a mom who was a housewife. So we had very limited cultural diversity domestically in my region. We did have sort of an indigenous population, the Native Americans in our community. We also had just white folks like me with, Scandinavian or German sort of pioneer immigrant backgrounds, right? And you can imagine the US, very limited media to show a global life, right? And it wasn't until I went to university in Spain that I had my first real experience abroad that led me to traveling throughout North Africa, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and going, God, there's so much out there to this world. Then ended up going backpacking through Southeast Asia. This was back in 1998. That completely dates me. But that's where I met my Swiss husband in Vietnam. That catapulted me to move to Switzerland in, I think, 2000 and completely recreate my life. Was not an easy experience. Really, that raw experience informed a lot of my work. But I was unlike your life, which has been globally mobile, mine, I was born and raised in the same town. And my English teacher had me, had my sister, had my brother, and had my mother and my father in English class.
If only you got your grandfather, that would make it into the grand slam.
Right. But that's how I knew community. It was the stability. It was the same people. And so I didn't know how to do global life. I was in a binational relationship. I didn't know how to have two families on two parts of the world, two groups of friends. And so I didn't have models, and it wasn't normal where I came from. And so for the last 20 plus years, that has been my journey of learning, I think, I want to say the hard way, because I didn't have people in my community to normalize it until actually my life became more rotational. So what happened is after really working hard to establish myself in Switzerland, learn German, coach in German, get a sort of a Swiss-like job, we ended up leaving everything in 2013 with my two cross-cultural kids. And I had to make the decision, do I want my cross-cultural kids to be third culture kids? And, Ruth, I saw your episode with Ruth. Thanks to Ruth and her book. I read that book and I'm like, well, if I'm an intercultural specialist, if anybody can do this, it should be me. So go and do this. So I said yes to helping my kids go from cross-cultural to adding the third culture. And we brought them to West Africa when my youngest was 1 and my eldest turned 5, that basically the day we landed. And we've been doing this ever since.
Sorry, just to rectify, is it West Africa or it's South Africa now?
So I'm in South Africa now, but we first moved to West Africa, to Burkina Faso. We were in Ouagadougou, and that was back in 2013. And now we're in South Africa.
Oh, thank God! I thought I put the wrong put the wrong title. Thank God.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I actually typically reserve this question for third culture kids, but for your case, though, this is something that I do tend to notice is that there is still, of course, a transition issue for whether you're an adult or when you are younger. Of course, there's a different degree to that. So my question for you to that is, how would you define home?
And I want to speak to that a little bit about child versus adult. But I have a very clear, I've searched for a clear definition. It used to be simple, then it got really complicated. The longer I was abroad, I always say that there's my womb home is where I'm originally from, born and raised, is Williston, North Dakota. My second home is my adopted and now also my second passport, Switzerland. And my current home is South Africa. I am not going to commit to one home. And because I spent my childhood years in one area, but I've spent much my adult life outside of there, I truly in my body do not feel a sense of home to a nation. It's more of a geographical location, like my physical house. And that's what I mean by womb home.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of time for global citizens, right? Like when we are told to describe home, it pertains more towards our loved ones, our family. And for your case, though, do you still feel it's the same thing when you are back to North Dakota, or it feels completely alien on its own?
Yeah, I always have reverse culture shock when I land in the airport. I do not know what to do. So I just gave you my simple answer, even though there was 3 parts, my simple answer. I do agree with you that home is more of a feeling. Like I have felt at home 3 times in my life that have nothing to do with geography. And the first one was when I arrived with other intercultural practitioners back in 2005 when I was doing the Summer Institute of Intercultural Communication. The second time was when I was doing my coach training with my Dr. Martha Beck community. And then the third time was at Families and Global Transition. So I also think home is a sense where you feel you belong, and it's where you feel seen or understood. So that's like my location independent answer to home. I honestly, when I go back, I feel very foreign, very, very foreign when I'm in the US, and I feel home when I'm literally in my house. But that's not always that simple, because my family has had a domestic experience in the US. I'm the only one who's lived abroad. So there are times where I felt huge gaps where, I believe in socialized medicine, and I just have different about how do we see the environment, how we see about racial diversity. And I just have very different life experiences. I consume very different media. So that can be kind of scary sometimes when you're at the place where your origin, right? And you feel different. And I know that parachute kids or other third culture kids feel that way, right? If you were socialized outside of your
parachute kid, right? Parachute kid right here. Yeah.
Right. So I know that I don't have as extreme of a situation because it wasn't during my childhood developmental years, but that feeling of like, oh, wow, we're supposed to totally get each other, but we don't get each other.
Actually, even as a child, it's actually not an easy stuff. I can remember it. I remember my first day of school when I came to Singapore, because at that time I wasn't registered in the class list, and I was sitting at the back. And the thing is this: when you are the new kid, and the thing is that I was 2 years older than most of my peers at that time, but I didn't know that there are actually some kids that's actually my age. So I'm bigger than most of them. So I stood up already. You're standing at the
Yeah.
back. Then they give you a name list. You are supposed to write your own. So I'm like, why does all these names sound so alien? So at that time, I actually put my own name, Calvin, and then I put my Chinese surname, which is Huang, which is yellow in Chinese. It's
Yep.
actually my legal name, but the thing is that well, it's not in my birth certificate. It's a name given by my late grandfather. So when my teacher actually called me, it's like Calvin Huang. I'm like, yes, but the thing is that even to them, they thought, why do you not sound like one? You don't sound sure of yourself. So I'm like, yeah, sure. But after a while, of course, I got used to it. So everybody already accustomed to me. So I just put my original name as the way it is.
I just have so much respect for that. Like, I was actually having a conversation with another TCK about this, around this idea of fitting in and belonging. And when I grew up, it's like if everybody knew my family and where they were from in generations, I don't have to do that navigating, right? Like, there's so much navigating that you've had to do at such a young age, which I think is extremely probably uncomfortable, but it's a great asset later in life, right? And then there's me who grew up in monocultural, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm the one scrambling later in life when I'm faced with that, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't have the I got out of the discomfort young, but I got the discomfort later, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. One of the motive when I created this is that I want to tell TCKs is that your life is not a mistake. It's not a curse. It's the ultimate blessing. The thing is that yeah, at a young age, it's gonna be a giant pain. It's gonna be a giant pain. Now this is I actually asked this before because I've never had a chance to ask a TCK mom directly for this. What was the what do you feel though is the difference within your kids' childhood? You have two sons, yes?
2 boys, yep.
Oh wow. Oh, good luck.
I know. They're very healthy boys.
Oh, as a male myself and as a TCK myself, yes, that can be really challenging. So good luck with that. How young are they?
I know.
How young are they?
They're so good, 8 and 12. So I've got a preteen, right? And I've got a very precocious 8-year-old.
Usually by around the age of 10 or 16, 10 to 16, they will start asking their identity. So, so with that, I salute you because I actually want to ask is that what do you feel has been the main motivational strength? Because the thing is that you guys moved from Switzerland to South Africa, which is an entirely different thing. And earlier you mentioned you want to you ask yourself whether you want them to be a cross-cultural kid or you want them to experience a third cultural kid lifestyle.
Yeah.
And along with that, you not only are you there with them, you actually have to handle your own transition. How was that? How is that experience of that?
Well, I think the hardest transition was to make the break from Switzerland and go to Burkina Faso, because I was leaving a secure situation. Switzerland is so safe, right? And going to a less stable situation in terms of healthcare, politically, all of that. So I think I was nervous about that transition. But what I learned during that, we went through a lot of interesting things in Burkina Faso. What I learned is that if I give my children the inner stability, right, they can deal with outward disruption. And in fact, it's one of the reasons why I wanted them to be third culture kids, because I want their view of a reality to be disrupted, and maybe that comes from my monocultural background, but I just gulped everything that came from the media when I was a child. Like, living in the bubble, right? You just gulp it up and you don't question it. And it took me until college to go, what? I have been lied to.
If you want to curse, your curse. Do curse, please. In this show, we do that.
Okay, good. I'm trying to hold back. But really, it's like I've been lied to this whole time. Like, there were so many parts of the story that weren't told. And I want my kids to be savvy. And not just think, the bubble of Switzerland is how the rest of the world is, or get one view of media or one story, right? I want my kids to hear all of the stories and then decide which pieces they're going to integrate into their own self, right? And this sounds super nerdy of me, but people who know me most aren't going to be surprised by this. But so, for example, when I was making that decision, I heard there was some research that was out on a podcast, and they talked about in 30 years, this was back, 10 years ago, in 30 years, that the population in sub-Saharan Africa will continue to boom, as well as South Asia, and democracies will continue to be unstable. And I was thinking, well, there's my 1-year-old boy. What kind of job opportunities do I want him to have when he's my age? And I want him to say, hey, these are my people. Like, sure, I'll go to sub-Saharan Africa, or sure, I'll go to South Asia. And I want him to feel home wherever he is and not see an other. And I think that's a real influences my passion about intercultural communication. And I don't mean to slam where I'm from, but just for an example, 85% of people from North Dakota voted for Trump this year. Right.
So on the election day itself, myself and several TCK content creators are part of the TCK Global Group. On the day itself, we all were actually glued in front of our laptop and television because we were checking. Yep. Oh, look, it turned blue. Oh, wait, no, it turned red again. Yeah.
Right. And I have a clear political position where I stand against many of the things that Trump has stood for, and I stand for the things that he's railed against. And I'm not going to hide that position. So I want my kids to go, wait a minute. Hey, there's a complexity here with these stories. And I still want them to see humanity in people that are different from them. Right. Yeah. So that's why I was like, okay, let's do this.
That's actually really, really, really admirable. And if anybody has never done it before, allow me to give you a round of applause, please. Well done. Well done. Not only do you have one of the coolest names on this show, you have done something that is beneficial for your children in the long run. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so funny. You're flattering me now. I'm going to start blushing.
It's my job. It's kind of my job to make sure that you guys are given the superstar of life that you guys get. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what do I do as a parent to raise them as third culture kids? I think I have a story I have to tell you because this happened last night at dinner. One of the things I try to do is give them language. Like, I want them to know what TCK means. I want them to know third culture kid, and that they get at least the definition, and that's part of their lived experience, right? Because I want them to have that language to hold on to. But this is what happened at dinner. I'm like, hey, you guys, we're outside eating. We had food out, and I said, I'm going to do an interview tomorrow about third culture identity, third culture kids. What do you think is important as kids, as TCKs, that I should know about? And my son picked up a piece of spaghetti, and he made a spaghetti mustache in like a upward spiral. And he was like all of a sudden speaking in different accents. And my other son was laughing until he almost choked on his water. And I was like, you know what? This is not their topic. This is my topic, right? They're interested in Robux, and they're interested in soccer and being on the trampoline. And so my job is just to build in an awareness now so that when they want to unpack it, they'll have something there.
Is Roblox something like a Lego? I'm sorry. I'm a millennial, but I'm not a kid anymore. Too.
I'm like so hip. I know what games like the kids play. No, it's this online gaming that they play. It's this game. I don't know, on their iPads.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now, that is more important to them than being a TCK. And so I'm not going to take that personally, and I'm not going to stop the work that I'm doing with them. I just want to build into them this complex identity and have access. My kids are like, am I half American, half Swiss, or am I American and Swiss, or am I African? Like, they have all these questions. And I'm like, what do you think? Like, what's your answer? And they'll unpack that. Like you said, like from 10 to 16, I'm going to call you when my kid is 16 and he's starting to confront that identity. You're going to have to help me out.
Okay. Wait.
But I want them to have
Wait.
something.
Wait, am I the one still asking the question, or okay? Well, with all due respect, if I experienced my biggest cultural shock as an adult when I returned back to Indonesia. I grew up in a country which is one of the four Asian tigers, one of a gigantic metropolitan city, even though, well, with all due respect to Singapore, its population is small. But the thing is that it has one of the most efficient transportation system. It is a huge metropolitan that caters to all kind of intercultural lifestyle. So when I came back, I need to live in a more conservative household, and it was not an easy transition. My suggestion is this, actually, for you. I think you are actually doing it the right thing by now. You are exposing them to their global lifestyle, but not only yourself, but your husband has to acknowledge that they are completely different from what you guys were as a kid. I mean, you have done the right thing. You've been studying it. You are. This is in fact your career. But a lot of times is this. For in Asia, for example, TCKs has a gigantic difficulty. Unless we come here as an adult, we came here as an expat, and well, we have a career. If you are back here and well, you have to live with your parents, you are expected to follow that particular mindset. So it's not an easy thing, is because you have formed a certain idea of yourself, and what about yourself doesn't acclimatize or in fact isn't ingratiate with a certain custom, and yet you are told you have to be this way. Then as an adult you will fight back. It's like, why do I have to be this way? I can form my own opinions. I have my own ideas. I think that is something that you definitely have to give them space to do that.
Right. Totally. And I don't think it'll be easy in Switzerland either, because the Swiss culture is also it's very order oriented, right? So, and coming from a TCK, even when we go now, we're like, you guys calm down, like quiet, Yeah. And so I think they will feel it. And it's like, are they going to be Swiss enough? Right? How will they be accepted and dealing with rejection or dealing with judgment based on not having been raised like there? And that's the whole idea about hidden immigrant too. You might even sound like you're from there, but you're not from there.
Yeah, the thing is that for TCQ, the rejection is a lot higher. Sorry. For one thing is that first, you are an outsider in other people's home. And when you are rejected and when you fail, they will you question everything. I actually remember, what was that? Okay, let me recall any past experience of mine. But I recall, if maybe I can't recall anything on my own particularly, but maybe I can use one of my past guests. His name is Pablo Troncoso. Baseball is a big thing in the US, right? And one of the country that he actually grew up with is Japan, which is whereby baseball is big. He failed to make the team. And you are doing something that is like one of your nation's pride. You are already an outsider there. I mean, as a white man living in Japan, he's already stood up, and he failed in baseball. So the crush is gigantic. It's because you start to question again. First, you have identity. Then, second, you start questioning. Oh my goodness, am I a big mistake, or am I a disgrace? That is something that all of us at one point actually went through. Well, your kids are not here right now, but I hope they'll be watching this later. I will
Mhm.
tell them this is that, well, you guys will have that difficulty, but it will be the biggest blessing of your life. And I
Mhm.
hope you are watching this later on and you have to thank
Mhm.
your mom later on.
Yes. And wash your hands, brush your teeth.
That I did not say. That I did not say. That
I
is
was
your
just going
mom.
to use the opportunity.
Okay. Uh, okay, that is not what I said, but that's your mom, so hooray.
Oh man, and only 30 minutes of iPad time. I'm serious.
That I did not say anything, guys. I did not say anything on that.
Um, so I want to know from you, like, what do you think I can do then to prepare? How can I prepare my boys now so that when that crushing disappointment happens, they'll have the tools built into them to deal with
Yeah.
it?
Okay. A lot of times is this some of the issues that not only a TCK at the age of 16, I've even seen TCKs from 31 to even 50
Mhm.
asking
Mhm.
their identity crisis. My advice is actually to tell them this: don't feel too burdened that you have to be an American. Don't feel too burdened that you have to be a Swiss.
Mhm.
Don't feel too burdened that you have to be a South African.
Mhm.
Because the thing is this: why I keep repeating to every single TCK is that why is the ultimate blessing? It's because you can see both the positive and its most negative aspects of the country. Now, I mean, nowhere
Mhm.
is perfect, right? I mean,
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And actually, going through that is actually going to form your very core
Mhm.
perspective, your
Yep.
insight. The thing is,
But can
is
I
that
share a story? Can I share a story with you about that? I watched my
absolutely,
son.
absolutely, please.
We were on a bike ride, and we were looking at future posts, like what would be the next destination. Would it be South Korea? Is it India? Is it where? Right? And we watch a video from one of those countries, and we said, "Hey, what do you think about that?" And he said, "This video only shows the positive sides. There's also negative sides." And I was like, yes, it was one of those
Well
proud
done.
mom moments, right? Where I was like, yes, my son can see both at the same time and he knows it comes with both.
I think if you for one thing is that the universal language is empathy. For one thing,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
because the thing is this: a lot of TCKs may come off to people who do not see who they are, or unless they have experienced that lifestyle, they
Mhm.
might come off as conceited, or in
Mhm.
fact, they may come off as somebody who is weird. Simply, it's
Mhm.
because when your issue could be something related to prom or something to
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
with graduation, you
Mhm.
are thinking of a global event that is happening around the world. And
Mhm.
well, as a teenager, everybody will be like, what are you doing this? And well,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, it's not a derogatory term, but like what you
Mhm.
used to describe
Mhm.
yourself, they will call you a
Mhm.
nerd.
Yep.
That's the thing. Yeah.
I own it. It's okay. It's okay.
No, it's all right. It's okay. It's not a derogatory term, but the thing is that what I can advise for them is that to constantly remind them is that you guys firstly is be humble, because the thing is
Mhm.
that people may not live this life. They do not
Mhm.
understand what you are going through, and the thing is that it will be most beneficial to you as an adult. It's because you don't approach things from one way. And
Mhm.
right now, your parents are giving, okay, let's see, you're American, you guys
Mhm.
live in Swiss, your husband is
Mhm.
Switzerland, yeah?
Mhm. Yep.
And now you guys are living in South Africa. So there's at least
Mhm.
four cultures there.
Mhm.
You guys are
Yeah.
approaching it to four different ways. You guys are
Yep.
approaching it to four different ways. That's the thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, like I keep reminding, is that your humility is needs to be there, because a lot of
Mhm.
people may not understand you. My advice is do not. My advice is be an observant first, and if you know that you can step in, do step in, because when you do
Mhm.
step in, you're gonna be the superstar. But
Mm.
if you want to take the spotlight immediately, people will not like it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is something that I actually advise to a lot of TCK is find a creative outlet.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it can be something like what I'm doing, a podcast. By the way, guys, if you guys are interested, there's a link in the description box for StreamYard, which is the software I'm using now. You can get a $10 for promo code. Yes, I have to plug that in. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, anyway, sorry. Yeah, why I encourage TCK to have a creative outlet is because it's actually a projection that their global life did happen.
Mm-hmm. That's
When
nice.
I came back home, the thing is that oh, yeah, when I came back home, the issue that I face is that when people hear about my global lifestyle, they'll be like, "Oh, wow, that's really impressive," if they've never experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's just a momentary flash of surprise. They would
Mm-hmm.
expect me to follow the locals' mindset, which
Mm-hmm.
is not
Mm-hmm.
something that I can easily attune to. Because to
Mm-hmm.
me, with all due respect, okay, even though I love Indonesia, is because
Yeah.
it's too slow.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you've shared with me a lot of wonderful story. I don't know if I've shared this with you or any of my past podcast appearances that we are mutually connected. My
Mm-hmm.
first ever go car ride, which is the higher transport car,
Mm-hmm.
I was actually asked by the driver. The first 5 minutes of knowing him is, "Hello, how are you? Have you eaten? Are you married? Where are you from?" 5 minutes. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, why do you ask me all this? I don't
Mm-hmm.
know you. And with all
Mm-hmm.
due respect, I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't want to make friends with you. I don't know you. It's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I didn't handle it well back then because the thing is because I'm so used to just keep to myself when I just bought a vehicle. Only
Mm-hmm.
after a while of staying here and I interacted with my cousin who himself is a cross-cultural kid who actually
Mm-hmm.
went back a lot longer than me. Then he told me, you know that they are not trying to be rude or anything, they're just
Mm-hmm.
trying to be friendly with you.
Right.
But it's
Right.
still something that is really, really terrifying.
When I was in Vietnam and they'd ask me how old I was like, I don't know if you should
Oh,
be
you don't ask a
asking
woman
that.
that. You don't ask a woman that. Oh,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
okay, okay. I actually want to ask something though. Is that
Mm-hmm.
what was the inspiration between for expat happy hour? I mean, you already shared the experience of how you actually start doing the how to you start being a cross cultural coach is because
Mm-hmm.
you realize that there needs to be some sort of guidance for your
Mm-hmm.
sons and your family, and you
Mm-hmm.
realize definitely that oh, there's definitely a lot more global family that can use
Yeah.
this kind of help. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
why do you also now branch to podcast?
Well, honestly, so I was coaching individuals and doing some group work, some corporate work, and everything I was learning in coaching, I would be able to share with my clients, and in blogs I would be writing. But I realized if I wanted to make a bigger impact, I wanted to share more. So I was over a decade of doing this. I've learned there's certain strategies that fast track people's progress around finding purpose or connecting with people far away or reducing overwhelm. And I thought there's two reasons. One, if I can share those strategies, more people are impacted positively. And even if they never become my client, that they're positively impacted. And the second really important reason is for them to know that they're not alone, that what one woman is going through, there's thousands of other women who are going through the exact same thing. What one
Yeah.
parent is going through, thousands are feeling that same way. So it's giving people permission to just acknowledge that's where I'm at. And there's a way that I can either just sit in that and that be okay, or I can do things differently and feel more empowered. And that's where the podcast came in.
Oh, okay, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's actually I actually share the same kind of mindset, but for me, of course, I directly focus it on TCK because
Mm-hmm.
at
Mm-hmm.
that time was because I was living in my family home, which is 4 hours outside the city, and I'm surrounded with nothing but livestock and chickens. So I can't make friends with chickens. And well, most of the locals don't speak English. I mean, I can speak
Mhm.
Bahasa, but the thing is
Mhm.
that when you grow up needing to excel in that language, and then suddenly you have to switch to your
Mhm.
own bird language, and you're like,
Mhm.
why does it feel weird in my tongue?
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was something that I did, that I decided, okay, let's do something for TCK, done by a TCK themselves.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
which is how this thing came about, because
Nice.
at least by inviting people who are TCKs or who has experienced a global life as yourself,
Mhm.
people can just listen to directly. I don't need any kind of qualification to do it. All you have to
Mhm.
do is just appear in front of camera and then just
Mhm.
tell your story. It's not
Yeah.
illegal. It's not something out of the extraordinary, but it's something that is
Mhm.
going to give value, and it tells people that you guys are not alone.
Exactly.
You guys are some people who are
Mhm.
of value to the world.
Mhm.
However, as sad to say, it's really a bitch when you are younger. It's
Mhm.
because you
Mhm.
may not be able to see it immediately. And well,
Mhm.
childhood can be rough, but it will be the most beneficial thing you can have in your adulthood.
Right. Right. And I don't think all TCK experiences are the same, right? Some people
Oh
have
no, no,
harder hurdles to cross than others, right? Depends on, I mean,
absolutely.
the international school system is pretty American centric with probably a European bias, right? So if you're
No
not
judgment here,
that,
no judgment here, but please change. Okay,
right? So my kids might not have as hard of a time, right? Because they kind of fit into those systems and those systems are familiar. And so I just want to acknowledge that too. Like only the TCK identity is it's one level, but if you're from a minority power dynamic, historically, then it's a whole nother ball game on top of that.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with that. No judgment, but please change. Sorry, what was that?
That's why I don't know if you know Tano's, or you do know her
Yep,
work. Tano's work
yep,
is, I think
yep.
it's just so important to share because people who come from majority identities need to know about it so that they are not blind to it, right? And people
Absolutely.
who are from minority identities or so-called minority identities will have validation of at least this has been, here's the story, right? So those are things I think really influence the TCK experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. I'm quite acquainted with people that you will
Mhm.
see in a lot of the
Mhm.
TCK community.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this is, I think, in a sense, well, I mean, 2020 has not been the best year. That's an understatement. Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
but the thing is that in a sense, there's a certain blessing to it for, especially for the global communities, because now the now I actually want to ask you this though. Do you
Mhm.
agree that actually like being having a lot of resources to for a lot of third culture kids or even expatriates to actually share their experience is something that is going to be most beneficial, is because now people see that there's actually such a lifestyle,
Mhm.
and well, going forward, learning this lifestyle has to be something that is implemented. Do you believe that?
Well, I think it's a really complex question. So one, I think what's been beautiful about 2020 is that people who are not living globally mobile lives now see that relationships can be maintained virtually, right? And I think people who are
Yeah, there's
domestically,
actually something called VR dating, you know that? Whereby they put the goggle thing and then they are actually on a date. I
I
was
don't
surprised when I
even,
heard that. I,
I don't even
I'm,
want to go there. I don't want to even know what happens with VR dating.
okay,
I'm old fashioned.
let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on from that, yeah?
So I think that's the benefit. I think that is the benefit, right? And I wish I believed in what many people believe of contact theory. People think that if you have contact with other cultures, then you're going to have natural understanding of other cultures. And that's just not true, right? It's not scientifically
Absolutely.
true. That you need to have real relationships and the power dynamic has to be equalized and there has to be trust, right?
Absolutely.
So if we are going to open up globally and really have this work, then those things need to happen. People need to establish real relationships with people who are different from themselves. The power dynamic needs to be equalized, and there has to be trust. If it's just, I'm going to not work here, but work here, then it's, I don't know if we will be better for it. You know, Bell Hooks talks about eat, pray, love cultural experiences, where you go and you kind of like the Julia Roberts book or whatever, the Elizabeth Gilbert's book, where you go to other cultures to take experiences. And Bell Hooks is like, well, what are you giving? And that is a paradigm that I think if we could go toward, if this is what would be really optimal, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of a utopia, but we got a lot of work to do.
Well, I mean, something always starts with somewhere, so it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So I actually want to ask you, with regards to that particular area, though, have you been able to create maybe a television program or any kind of media content back when you were younger about something that can tell you what is the difference between the global lifestyle? It's not that everything that you see in North Dakota is not what is defined the whole world. What would you do?
Right. Yeah. So if I could go back, I would, I think I would show two things. I would spend half of the program just showing normal life. Get up, brush your teeth, work,
you're not going to get
right?
any rating out of that.
I know, but it's like, we're not just like swirling G&Ts over here, you know, going for massages, living a luxurious life. I think there's part of this normalcy, right? And the other part, I think, is I would show the pain and the joy, right? Yeah. So the pain, the scene where you zoom in and you watch the woman go to bed at night and wonder if she's going to regret this because she's afraid, you know, she's far away from her parents or from her siblings or from people she loves, and like holding that heavy thought in her heart as she falls asleep. That's one of the realities that people encounter during their journey with living globally, right? But then there's also this joy of like having a breakthrough where you finally understand how someone who seems so different from you is actually very similar, and you feel connected. Sort of like that roller coaster of the mundane, the painful, the joy. That is the TV show that I would have, because it's all of that, right? Like it's not just this or just that. And there's pain and there's joy. So every time we talk about pain, about the TCK experience, I think we need to counter that by also acknowledge, you've talked about the growth and the strength and all the joys and the access that you have that you wouldn't. So it would be like a roller coaster reality show, I think.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Yeah, don't worry. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. Why I actually asked this in particular is because I do feel that, well, contents always caters directly to, well, your key demographic, which is your local, right? So if you can create a much more broader content, I think it can be something that would be most beneficial. For one thing is that we see a lot of stuff that is now trying to be pushed to encourage diversity. Like, for example, there's an upcoming Disney show called Raya, which is actually based on Southeast Asian mythology. So this is something that I'm really interested to see.
That's good.
Yeah, because all the stereotypes of Asians is that we are either nerds or we know Kung Fu. So come on, guys. Not all of us do that. Better. I barely passed my mathematics, by the way.
Yeah, people can do better, I think. I definitely think so.
All right. Okay, so this is, I think, is going to be my last question because you practically jumped half of mine.
This is a problem of interviewing a podcast host, right?
Yeah,
so I should have warned
it is. You guys will have one questions will come out with 3 different answers. So I'm like, okay, you guys jump up half of my entire question, so I need to come up with something new on the spot. But it's okay. It's awesome. All right. What do you feel though has been your biggest blessing living this global life? And to be fair, what has also been what you feel is a curse living this life?
Yeah, right. So I think the biggest blessing is it's disrupted the narratives I was born with, like the growing up, born and raised in North Dakota. It broke apart the narratives that I was exposed to and helped me see the world through other people's eyes, or at least see them as close as I could get. I can't go native every place that I'm at, and nor would it even be appropriate in some contexts, right? But it's given me a level of empathy and context that I wouldn't have before. And that is a huge blessing. I feel like I can do better on this planet for more people with that perspective. The curse, if I'm really honest, is it's just painful when I think about my close-knit family, my mother, my father, my sister, my brother. And I tell my clients not to do this, and I have done it, where you count the times. How many times have I seen them, right? I've been abroad for over 20 years. I see them once a summer. They've come to visit a couple times. I'm the one who usually goes there. That sort of pain of, well, it wasn't at my grandfather's funeral. I wasn't at my auntie's funeral. Right. I wasn't at my best friend got divorced and had to move out of her house. Right. I wasn't there at that wedding. Those things that I missed, those are painful and they're real. And the way I look at that is I also got moments that are really special and cherished because I'm abroad, because I would come to the US and be there for 4 weeks. Otherwise, I'd be a busy professional in another state and pop in for a weekend, right? So I have to acknowledge that loss also comes with a counter gain. And I'm not going to say it equals out, because that's not the math that we do here. It's just is, you know?
Yeah, I get that. I get that. I think it's because the thing is that it's not that we don't want to be there, but being there, we are there because we are for our loved ones. But the thing is that being in the location there directly sometimes affect how we actually can see, and whether we questions whether we can function over there. Because for one thing is that once you live a life whereby a different culture affect how you think, your perspective, and your mindset, sometimes being in one place may not be something that benefits you in the long run.
Right. Yes, definitely. And it's also more complex because I have 2 home countries, right? And I have this global network. You can't be everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
Even though I want to be.
Well, that is why we have technology. At least you can see us.
That's right. Totally.
All right. So that is actually my last question. And well, for the obvious reason that I already stated. So
Hey now. I feel like I have to defend myself a little bit.
Nope, you don't get to do that. This is my show.
You knew
if I'm on your show, then yes, you can defend yourself.
Didn't you know what you were getting into when you asked me to come here?
Yeah, I did. But yeah, sorry, you don't get to defend yourself. This is mine. If I'm on yours, then yes, you can defend yours.
Okay, deal.
All right. So yeah, with that, that's actually the end of Global Citizens, episode 79, American by birth, Swiss by marriage, and expat in South Africa by choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, before I leave, I actually need to send a thank you to certain individuals who live alike. So first off is my sister, Miss Cecilia, Mr. Asabul Ali Khan. Sunday, is this your connection?
Which one?
Asabul Ali Khan. Do you know that? This gentleman? Oh, my apologies then. Oh, okay. No worries. I mean, thank you so much for tuning in and living alike. Along with that is my buddy, Mr. Jamie Goodman and Jen Mohindra. And last but definitely not least is I also need to thank Sunday for making the time to come here, because she is definitely busy with 2 kids and a career.
That's right. I love what I do, though. So thank you for having me. I'm honored to be part of this beautiful experience.
You're very well welcome. And with that, do take care of everyone. And well, just to repeat what Sunday say, do wash your hands and do take care of yourself. It's already the new year, so yeah, we have to take care of ourselves. And with that, see you everyone. Good night, good morning, or good evening, good afternoon, or evening for everyone who is watching it at a different time slot. This episode will be replayed on my Instagram TV and also in my YouTube channel. And with that, take care, guys. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.